Welcome back, everyone, to the Deep Dive. This is where we take a deep look at source materials to pull out those really crucial, fascinating insights for you. And today we're tackling something pretty immense. We're doing a deep dive into one of the most striking stories on record, really. The story of Prophet Hud and the ancient, powerful people of Ard. Now, for this, our sources are very specific. We're sticking strictly to the Holy Quran and authentic prophetic tradition. Our mission, to dig into the details of this, almost forgotten empire. Their incredible physical strength, their huge architectural statements, and the really dramatic, frankly, terrifying way it all ended.
Yeah, and what's so compelling, I think, is how relevant this ancient story feels even now, thousands of years later. It's not just some dusty history lesson. It really serves as this profound, almost chilling case study, doesn't it? About how overwhelming strength and wealth, the sources actually use this term basia fela al-khalq, meaning like superior physical creation, how that can twist into just absolute tyranny and a rejection of any kind of accountability.
Right, like the ultimate too big to fail scenario, but on a civilizational scale. They really define themselves by just sheer size and power. So let's start there. The sheer scale of the people of Akshoy. Geographically, okay, where were they based and what was it about them physically that stood out so much?
Well, the general understanding is they controlled this huge area called Al-Ahqaf. Most scholars place this somewhere in the vast desert region between what's now Oman and Etramat in Yemen. So think deep desert, but likely near old trade routes. Just the location itself kind of hints at the scale of their influence,
Okay, near trade routes, big desert territory, and physically. The descriptions sound almost, mythological.
Yeah.
Unmatched strength, massive stature. What does superior creation actually mean here?
It means exactly that, apparently. The sources describe them as having a physical build, a strength and height, far beyond any people who came after them. Imagine an entire society where the sort of physical limits we take for granted just didn't really apply in the same way. Their capacity for labor, for building, and definitely for warfare was supposedly unparalleled.
Wow. So this physical gift, this basia, it wasn't just about how they looked or what they could lift. It actually shaped how they saw the world.
Absolutely. That's the core of it. They were so dominant physically, so used to just overpowering any obstacle, that they started to see themselves not just as strong, but as the undisputed masters of the world, unchallengeable.
So that physical power becomes the main barrier to thinking about anything beyond themselves. If you can physically dominate everything, why believe in limits or some unseen higher power?
Precisely. Their strength basically crowded out any room for humility. And that arrogance, it wasn't just an internal feeling. It manifested in really concrete ways, the sources highlight, specifically their monumental architecture and their sheer tyranny.
Okay, let's dig into the architecture first, because that seems key to their mindset. They weren't just building functional towns, they were building statements, right? Shouting their power from the mountaintops, almost literally.
That's a great way to put it. They apparently carved enormous dwellings right into the cliffs, into mountainsides. Think Petra, maybe, but perhaps on an even grander scale across their territory. And besides carving homes, they erected these huge landmarks, these towering structures on basically every high point they could find.
So hang on, if they were super strong and had the resources, wouldn't they naturally build big things? What makes it specifically arrogant?
It's the why. The sources emphasize it wasn't driven by real need. It was psychological. They weren't primarily building for shelter or utility. They were building symbols of permanence. There's a key passage where they're challenged, asking something like, do you build on every high place a sign? Just amusing yourselves.
Amusing yourselves. That really hits home. It wasn't even about function, just like showing off.
Exactly. And the implication continues. They built these massive fortresses hoping you might live forever. That's the crucial psychological point. They were trying to build their way out of mortality, architecturally rejecting the very idea of limits or an end. And if you think you can build yourself into immortality in this world, well, why worry about accountability or any other world?
Right, that makes sense. And this massive building project, this structural hubris, it wasn't just for show, it was backed up by force, wasn't it? Their strength let them dominate others.
Oh, absolutely. Their power meant they could, and apparently did, oppress weaker neighbors without fear of reprisal. Their might translated directly into brutality. The warning they received was incredibly direct, and when you strike like tyrants. They used that physical advantage as a tool for total domination, crushing anyone weaker.
So it's this potent mix, building purely for show and pride, and using their strength to oppress. this is the situation Prophet Hud walks into. And he was one of them, right? So he knew their culture, their language, their pride.
Yes, being one of them is key. He understood their mindset intimately. His core message, though, was fundamentally simple. Monotheism, Tawhid. He basically said, look, O my people, worship Allah. You don't have any other true deity. He wasn't trying to deny their strength or wealth, but to get them to see the source. He was asking them to acknowledge the giver of the gifts, not worship the gifts themselves.
And it seems like his approach was pretty clever, actually. He didn't just demand they give up their power, he appealed to their desire for strength, didn't he?
He did. He framed obedience not as weakness, but as the path to more strength. He promised that if they turned back to God, acknowledging him, then God would send rain upon you in torrents and add strength to your strength. It was an offer tailored perfectly to their obsession, more power, more abundance, but conditional on recognizing where it truly came from.
But predictably, maybe, given their arrogance,
Yeah.
the reaction was just immediate rejection, hostility.
Completely hostile. If you genuinely believe you're the strongest thing around, someone from your own community telling you you're fundamentally wrong, well, that doesn't go down well. They basically dismissed his message right away, called it tales of the ancients, irrelevant old stories.
And they didn't just dismiss the message, they attacked him personally.
Yes, they questioned his sanity, demanded clear physical evidence while ignoring the evidence of creation all around them. And their specific accusation is really revealing, isn't it?
What was that again?
They said something like, we only say that some of our gods have afflicted you with madness. Think about that. They believed he was crazy precisely because he dared to question their idols, their false sources of power. Their worldview was so totalizing, so wrapped up in their own might, that challenging it seemed like insanity.
Wow. So this goes on for some time. He keeps trying, they keep refusing.
Yes, the sources imply a lengthy period of this standoff. Hud's persistence versus their absolute entrenched defiance, this profound unwillingness to budge from the delusion of their self-made power. It eventually seals their fate. It leads to the divine verdict.
And this is where the narrative takes that really dramatic turn. After all the warnings, the punishment finally comes. But the Ad make this terrible mistake right at the beginning.
They do. The very first sign was something that should have been welcomed, especially in their environment. A dense, dark cloud moving towards their valleys. Now remember, this is arid land. A big rain cloud. That's usually cause for celebration. It means life, water, prosperity.
So they saw it coming and thought.
They rejoiced. They thought, finally rain for our field. They were completely confident, seeing it as just another resource coming their way, confirmation of their blessed status.
Cheering for the very thing that's about to destroy them. That's chilling.
It's pure irony. The sources capture it perfectly. When they celebrate the cloud, the response comes essentially, no, rather, this is what you were impatiently asking for, a wind, carrying a painful punishment.
A wind, not rain.
A devastating wind. And the sources give it specific names that highlight its nature. It's called Al-Ahqaf, the barren wind. Think about the contrast. In a place that craves life-giving rain, they get a wind that brings absolutely nothing fertile, no life, only total destruction.
Barren. And wasn't there another name? Something about the sound.
Yes, which implies a furious, shrieking, violent sound. So it wasn't just the physical force, it was likely psychologically terrifying too. Constant howling destruction.
And it wasn't quick either, was it? The duration seems significant.
Incredibly specific and excruciatingly long.
Yeah.
7 nights and 8 days in succession, nonstop, for over a week. Think about that continuous assault. These giant people, the ones who prided themselves on unmatched physical strength, were utterly powerless against this divinely sent force.
All their fortresses, their mountain carvings, their sheer muscle. Useless.
Completely useless. The final image the sources leave us with is haunting. These mighty people, known for their stature, were seen scattered, fallen, as if they were hollow trunks of palm trees.
Hollow trunks. Just
Yeah.
empty shells. All that legendary strength reduced to nothing in just over a week.
It was a complete inversion. Everything they built to signify permanence was wiped out, and the builders themselves became symbols of emptiness and decay. And the sources are clear. Prophet Hud and the believers with him, the few who listened, they were saved by mercy from that wind. But for the tyrants of Ad, it was the definitive end.
Okay, so let's just wrap our heads around that transformation. A whole civilization, unmatched in strength, known for these incredible, colossal buildings meant to last forever, reduced to hollow logs by a wind that blew for about 8 days. It's such a stark lesson about the limits of physical power, isn't it?
It really is. It stands as this ultimate counter-narrative to the idea that purely physical or material strength, whether it's giant buildings or military might or economic power, can somehow grant immunity from consequences, from accountability. The very foundations they built in stone to defy their end were, ironically, built on the shaky ground of arrogance and denial of anything beyond the material.
Yeah, well put. And that really brings us to a final thought, something for you, the listener, to maybe reflect on. The downfall of aid really kicked off when they saw that destructive storm cloud, mistook it for a blessing for rain, and actually celebrated its arrival. They cheered on their own doom.
Which makes you wonder, doesn't it? What things are we celebrating today? What modern developments, maybe technological, maybe social, maybe economic shifts, things we cheer for because they seem so powerful, so fast, so big, might we be fundamentally misreading? Are we potentially celebrating the arrival of our own barren wind, completely unaware of the destructive, life-denying potential hidden within the very thing we're applauding?
That's definitely something to think about. Thank you for diving deep with us again today.